Batman has been one of the most successful superheroes on the big screen, but his movies have not been immune to errors. From Christopher Nolan's iconic trilogy to The Batman in 2022, the Dark Knight's films have had some blunders that made it all the way through editing to release. Here are 10 Batman mistakes you'll never be able to unsee. Batman Begins hits an action-packed climax very early when Bruce Wayne completes his training with the League of Shadows, but declines to join their ranks due to their philosophy on killing enemies. His refusal leads to an all-out fight, and Bruce triggers the explosives stored in this remote mountain hideout, bringing it down around all those left inside. His mentor, Ducard, is knocked unconscious. Bruce lifts him up and carries him out of the burning building, but they both slide down a treacherous cliff's edge nearby. Bruce narrowly saves Ducard from slipping off the edge and leaves him there still unconscious. This scene has two major issues. First, as an unconscious Ducard slides down the cliff on his belly, he keeps his head elevated so it doesn't scrape along the ice. This one might be explained away by his armor holding him up, but even that's a stretch. The most glaring visual issue comes when Ducard slides off the cliff and Bruce pulls him back up with his hand. The shot clearly shows that the two men are grasping their hands together, which shouldn't be possible if Ducard is unconscious and limp. Later in the same movie, Ducard reveals himself to be Ra's al Ghul and comes to Gotham to destroy it and seek revenge on Bruce. He confronts Bruce at Wayne Manor, setting it on fire before leaving to see the rest of his plans fulfilled. In their scuffle, Bruce is trapped under a wooden beam and left for dead, but Alfred returns just in time to lift the beam off of Bruce and get him out of the mansion before it collapses. Focusing on the deadly wooden beam itself, it is already burning pretty well when it lands on Bruce, knocking him out and trapping him in the mansion. It's still burning when Alfred enters the house later. However, in the shot where Alfred actually lifts the beam off of Bruce, it seems to be perfectly intact. Once Bruce is free, the beam is on fire again, and it's not the only prop with inconsistent flames either. The table in the background with a globe on it seems to go back and forth between scorching flames and untouched. In The Dark Knight, Harvey Dent is hunting down the organized crime bosses he held responsible for Rachel's death. In the scene where he hides in Salvatore Maroni's car waiting for him, the scenes outside of their respective windows are moving at vastly different paces. The scene was probably shot in a studio with green screens in the windows to fill in the background later. Maroni's window shows the car starting from a dead stop, while Dent's window shows it moving at a high speed right away. One of the big climaxes of The Dark Knight happens on the two ferries carrying prisoners and civilians away from Gotham. The Joker gives each of them the power to blow up the other ferry, attempting to prove their selfish natures by pitting them against one another. The issue is that we see the ferries filling with people in daylight and we see them pushing off from the harbor at dusk. When the moral quandary hits, it's pitch black outside and we're told it's around midnight, yet the dock is still within view. If the ferries had really left at dusk, their journey would be far over by then and this part of the Joker's plot would have fallen short. In The Dark Knight Rises, Batman and Catwoman's first big fight scene together really gets the hype started. This scene culminates with a continuity error with Catwoman's shoes. So far, the movie has emphasized that she wears tall stiletto heels while burgling and fighting. She even uses the points to dispatch some of the attackers on the roof. However, at the end when she runs for Batman's hovercraft to escape, it's clear she's wearing flats. Look, we can't expect the League of Shadows to follow OSHA protocol, but the scene where they break into the bunker containing Gotham's infinite energy reactor stretches the limits of believability. Bane arrives and gives the nod for his henchmen to blow the wall open with explosives, and they all crouch down in place as one of them yells a warning. However, they don't move away from the blast, and many of them are hit with the flying debris. If you look closely, you can see that these chunks of debris are bouncy, which is good for the actors, but confusing for the reactor containment. The League holds Gotham hostage with a weaponized reactor constantly moving through the city in an armored truck, and much of the climax of the film depicts characters trying to disable this mobile weapon as it swerves through the city streets. While Bane's plan is to keep the reactor moving erratically, you begin to notice several of the same buildings and signs behind it during the big finale. Specifically, the armored truck passes by the same Jose Bank clothing store at least 3 times while Gordon is trying to disable it, and after Talia al Ghul has taken the wheel. Keeping with the traffic theme, The Batman had a couple of glaring moments where you could tell it was filmed in the UK, not in the seediest city in the United States. First, when Bruce arrives at Gotham City Hall, we see a wide shot of the building and all the milling traffic outside. Among the cars and crowds is a large commuter bus, but if you happen to pause here, you'll notice that the bus is facing the wrong way. It's parked on the left-hand side of the road because British cars drive on the opposite side from Americans. British viewers even quickly recognized this as a Mersey travel bus from Liverpool where the movie was filmed. There's one more issue like this at the very end of the movie when Batman and Catwoman drive away from each other on motorcycles. The shot of Selina shows the distinctive give way sign that British streets have, again in the left lane, not the right. This is a dead giveaway that they're not in the US, but it's pretty impressive that only 2 of these clues slipped through. You have to imagine it was an arduous task to physically or digitally alter all of these streets while filming. Another Catwoman issue crops up earlier when she brings Batman back to her apartment. Up to this point, we've seen her prowling at her work in the appropriate black leather gloves, but once she's home, she takes them off. We can now see that her nails are extremely long and well manicured, which would not be practical to wear under her tight, dexterous gloves. Finally, a few scenes later, Batman and Gordon are watching the Penguins' gang when Catwoman shows up to rob them and all hell breaks loose. In this scene, Batman is shot and Selina is pinned down, so Gordon drives in to distract the gang members. They get into a shootout with bullets riddling Gordon's police cruiser as he fires back from the driver's side door. There is a distinct shot of a bullet hitting the floodlight on Gordon's car here and an accompanying shattering sound to let us know it's broken. However, just a few shots later, the light is intact and functional. Batman movies do ask a lot of their viewers, and if we're willing to suspend our disbelief for grappling hooks and fear toxins, we should probably cut them some slack on these visual inconsistencies as well. Have you noticed any errors we might have missed? Let us know in the comments and keep it locked to Comicbook.com for all your Batman news.